Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show. Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and today's guest is Ashley Ingle. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Adi.
How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. I am so excited to have you on the podcast because you are a serial entrepreneur, and I love interviewing entrepreneurs that made it, were able to scale the business, grow the business, sell a business, start a new one. And you have such a great story to tell and share with our audience. And not only that, you are like discipline is your strongest trait. So that means you're totally into processes and you understand the importance of the processes. And we're going to talk all about processes as well.
That sounds great.
Okay, good. Well, first of all, you are the CEO and founder of Profit Matters, which is an accounting company, and you're based in Texas, but you service clients all over the U.S.
That's right. Our employees and our clients are all over the U.S.
Great. So we can talk also about being virtual, being remote, being not being tied into a specific geographical zone. So that'll be great. But I really want to hear about your story as an entrepreneur. So let's start where you started and the different companies you were involved with until we get to Profit Matters, and then we start talking processes.
That sounds great. So during my studies to become a CPA, I went to work at a place called Worlds of Wow. And while working at Worlds of Wow, I was fortunate enough to earn some equity there. And I thought it was a place, Dee, that I was going to stay forever. We had great processes. We had great people. It was just a fantastic company all around. And I started when we were very small. And of course, I was young. And I just thought, okay, being where I'm at here is fantastic. And everything works like it's supposed to, and you could perfect things. And I just love the business in general. So when the CEO said, hey, we're going to sell this business, I thought, oh, well, why would we do that? And I spent the next couple of weeks pretty upset about it, to be honest. And he said, look, this is a really good time for us to sell this business. So we're going to do it. And after interviews and going through some of the pre-work that you do when you want to sell a business, we chose a buyer and went through due diligence and had an exit there. And so that was my first exit. And I'll tell you what I learned from that. You could be successful in one business with the right people and then go to a different industry and find that it's much harder. So my words of wisdom today would be that just because you're good at one business and one industry does not mean that you're going to just bust out of the gate and be wildly successful at them all. Because
what industry was the other one? The one that you left, what was the industry?
So we considered ourselves a manufacturer. So we did props, murals, 3D pieces, and then we installed them. So I would say like quasi-construction when you get to the installation part, but it wasn't like construction that you see a subcontractor doing something like plumbing or electricity or,
Right.
pouring concrete, which we're going to get to. That's a whole different story.
So then you moved from there. So the business was sold. Did you stay as part of the business when it was sold?
I did. I agreed to stay as part of the exit. And I had a 1-year contract to stay. I remember on day one, the company who acquired us was private equity. And they said, we don't know what we're going to need you for, but we do need you to be here. And so I also remember feeling like, oh, they don't actually need me. So that was kind of a shocking moment, right? And then you wonder, well, what am I going to do every day? And we exited and I stayed for 6 months and said, oh my goodness, this last of our money is tied to me being here a year. And I don't think I'm going to make it a year because I haven't had a boss in the sense of what I had now. And it felt completely different. And so we asked if I could end my 1 year early, and they agreed. They were super nice about it. No problems there. And so they let me out after 6 months.
Okay. So it's basically the moral of the story here is that when you exit a business, as the owner, you have to make, I mean, there are differences. So you exit as an owner, but then the employees, the culture can change. I mean, it doesn't have to, depends on how you structure the deal and what you do and who is the new owner. But basically you learned that one culture was different than the other and it didn't fit your needs. And you left that one. And what did you do?
I couldn't wait to go and have my own company and do my own thing. And as we exited, a friend of ours said, hey, I've got this concrete company and it has a cash flow problem, maybe a profitability problem. Not sure, haven't really kept up with my books, but you're a CPA, maybe you could take a look at it for me. And so I started digging in the books and I'm like, this is my opportunity. And so I said, I'd love to buy your business from you and you can stay on as an employee and we'll figure this thing out. And so bought the company 100%, and the company did residential concrete. So like pool decks and patios or sidewalks, driveways, stained concrete, things of that nature. I should have stayed in that business in hindsight, but I came out of a business where I felt like I was young and really successful. And I thought, well, this is a business I can grow to $100 million top line as fast and furious as I can, which was also the wrong idea, but it was fun. So came out of there and did that. And then I got into commercial concrete. I met a big general contractor in this area at the airport of all places. We're both flying out to Mexico. He says, are you watching a video of concrete being poured? And I'm like, yeah, we're pouring concrete on one of my jobs today. He says, do you know who I am? He's one of the biggest GCs in the Dallas area. And I said, no, I don't know who you are. And he handed me his card and he said, I'm taking a trip, but give me a call. So long story short, Adi, I called him like 6 times, hoping he was going to take my call and he would mentor me. He finally answers and he's like, what do you want? And I'm like, you said you would help me and I really want you to help me. And he said, well, I'm going to build this bank, which is the bank I actually bank at over in Frisco. And you can pour the concrete there and it can be your first commercial concrete job. We show up residential guys in regular vests. We have no idea what we're getting into. And we learned on that job. And he did a great job kind of holding our hand and showing us the ropes. And you can't do this and you got to have that. And so we managed through that entire process. And that took us on to where we went from, pouring sidewalks and driveways to, now we were building 5th level elevated decks on hospitals and building a Goodwill and building a Care Now. And so building big concrete projects all around the DFW area. So
that's you as the CEO of that company.
That's right.
That is incredible, actually. Just that point alone is such an amazing story. But, and I want to hear the rest of the story, but I'm curious, when your friend asked you to look at the P&L or the financial reports for that company, said, this is my opportunity. What did you see there that was like you went, yeah, this is my opportunity?
A cash flow problem, but not a profitability issue. And so that's what we run into a lot as a business owner is we actually are making money, but we're not collecting fast enough for it to feel like we're making money. And so we need to look at the financial statements on the cash basis and the accrual basis. I'm a big fan of, if you want to manage a company, you have to manage on accrual basis. Not everybody agrees with me, but from a CPA standpoint, I like to do that because I don't want to see what cash I brought in. I want to see what's actually coming to me with the work that I've completed. And I want to see percent of complete and things like that we, typically see in construction. That's our specialty at Profit Matters is construction. And that's why we coming from Worlds of Wow, going into concrete, it's always been a place where I feel like business owners can use the expertise the most. And so that's when I dug into the financials, kind of what I saw. And I thought, what that tells me is if we grow the top line, we start to cover our overhead more and more, and we become even more profitable. And then we fix our own cash problem.
Meaning like in terms of collecting the accounts receivables and not having too much money out so you can actually have the cash in and increase the profit even more. Interesting. Wow. So you actually so you grew this as a CEO of a company that's now doing commercial projects, big commercial projects. What did you do? Like what's the rest of the story?
The rest of the story is the business was extremely hard. And that's why I started this Profit Matters, is because in sitting in the CEO seat, even as a CPA, it was really tough. And so you continue putting money in. What I learned in construction was things that I hadn't learned coming from more of a manufacturing background is you have retainage. Large parts of your profit are held. You may get paid years from now on your profit. And so you're constantly having to have more working capital. So understanding how we could get paid faster and how much capital was actually going to take on a project and things of that nature. So the goal became, instead of scaling the company up, to actually try to scale the company down a little bit and move on to things that were better suited for me. And so I did that, actually stop the $100 million climb, work our way down to some smaller projects that were a better fit for us, exit the business, and then go on to Profit Matters, where I felt like we could really get into construction and say, here are all the things that I learned the hard way. Here are all of the things that I took a risk on that you should not, and let us tell you why. And so we're constantly teaching our team internally, like, these are some things that we can be on the lookout for in construction that can really help these business owners along the way.
Amazing. So now you help business owners, especially in construction, to be more profitable through accurate accurate bookkeeping, financial reporting, making decisions, helping them make those decisions, right?
That's right. Yep.
That's fascinating. That's great. And you grew that team as well. So you started with how many, and how many are you now?
Yeah, started with no employees. It was crazy. What originally transpired was I wanted to make an app. And so I started an app company with a partner. And the goal of the app was to be like a digital CFO, if you will. And so instead of you needing to hire a CFO, we would give you the tools that you could look at your books through a CFO lens, if you will, and you would have a dashboard and all of those things. So my partner said, hey, we need to start a bookkeeping business. This is how this actually started, so that we could have clients to test our app on. And we'll push the app on them. They have to use it as part of the service at no cost. And then we'll be able to get transparent feedback. When my partner and I started, and I actually did all the accounting work, and coming from a CFO and CEO and going down to where I need to get a bank statement and look at reconciling books was really interesting, because that makes you look at the process. And so I'll tell you, Dee, I did that so that I could say, we're going to hire people in this business, and this is the process that they need to follow, because I did it and this worked, or that didn't work. And so I spent the first year taking clients, losing clients, working on different things, and figuring out, okay, this is what the process looks like for each activity in Profit Matters. Fast forward 1 year, my partner and I disagreed on the way the work should be done. He wanted to outsource to a firm in India, that we would kind of build our own team over there. And I didn't feel like that fit just what I had envisioned to happen. And I went back and saw my goal list before becoming a shareholder at Worlds of Wow. I really wanted to have my own accounting firm. That's why I went to be a CPA. So I went, okay, wow, drop that app idea for now. Let's pause on that. And let's build a really amazing service-based company. And so I bought out my partner January 2020. At that time, there were 3 CPAs. And we did have some offshore bookkeepers that supported us over in Macedonia. And we had, maybe 50 clients total. And we went, okay, we're going to get rid of our offshore team. We're going to hire our own accountants and bookkeepers to work for us. And we started doing that. And we've grown up to, we have over 20 people now.
Amazing. Amazing. So you are all about processes, discipline, repeatability, accountability. Tell us why, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, why are processes so important?
In a virtual environment, if you do not have processes, you will not make it, right? And so I'll tell you, Profit Matters, like we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, we're 100% virtual. I have always been the biggest fan of EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, that says we're going to package up all of our processes and we're going to have the Profit Matters way, right? Which I know that you do a fantastic job helping people put those systems and processes in place. I've always thought we can't run our business if we don't have a way that we're going to do something. So what's the Profit Matters way? But what I found in this particular business is I'm remote. And so I can't just be a D, can you come in here and help me? And we'll look at this and we'll figure out a better way. And then we'll teach Sally across the way how we're going to do it. It doesn't work like that. And when we bring in staff and we have 22 people or 25 people, whatever it is, I may not ever get to tell that person for the first 6 months, this is how I like to do it. And this is why, right? Your calendar starts to fill up. You get busy. Other people are doing the training. You're putting bookkeepers together to learn the client work that they're doing. And so it's really, really important that we say, this is how we always ask our clients for bank statements. This is what happens when they don't reply. This is what happens once we get all the information. Because if we're all doing it a different way, then we're probably all reaching out to the client. Everybody's getting frustrated. Like, it just becomes a nightmare in this environment.
That's right. Absolutely. So basically what I'm hearing is, because of virtual, but not just virtual. I mean, even if you were just in person, right? If you were in person, you still need that information for onboarding correctly, for training correctly, and for consistency, so you can actually get consistent results. Because in bookkeeping, even more important than maybe other industries, you have to have consistent results, right? I mean, if I am doing the reconciliation on a client and then you are calling and let's say I'm sick or I'm not there and somebody has to pick up, they have to do it the same way and understand how it's being done.
That's right. It has to be a repeatable process also for you to be able to have the gross margin you need and scale the business and, take it where it really needs to go.
That's exactly right. So what's the ROI from having well-documented processes and procedures?
We're still learning that. No, I'm just playing.
I'm asking a CPA and an accountant. Okay, so I like to look at that ROI not necessarily from a profit standpoint, although definitely profit matters, and that is definitely an ROI, but from the things that lead to profit, right? Those different milestones that will lead eventually to have a profit in the business, because you have now more time that you can invest on working on the business. You have more time as a visionary. You have a retention of employees, all those things. So from your viewpoint and having run multiple companies and also work with so many different construction companies now as the CEO and founder of Profit Matters, what do you see as the benefit or the ROI from having well-documented processes and procedures?
It's huge. I mean, if you think about bringing on an employee and you onboard them incorrectly, then you're going to end up replacing that employee, or they're going to be dissatisfied or confused, and it's going to take them time to find their groove. And so as a CPA, unfortunately, I tend to usually think about it in numbers, where you said that you try not to think about it in numbers. But I think every time we have staff turnover, it probably costs us at least half of that salary just to replace someone else, right? And then when we think about how fast we can do work whenever it's processed, I mean, I think about even going back to manufacturing days where we did Lean Six Sigma, in the 5S, where we said, if you walk from here to here every day, instead of taking 3 other stops along the way, we're going to become, 10% more profitable on you as a person, right? And so we look at people in a service-based business as each person is our revenue generator, right? And each person has a cost on them. And so when I think about having poorly documented processes, I think about all the things you say. We're losing people, we're losing clients. And if you think about us spending, $10,000 to go and get a client, and then we lose that client, like, what's the expense of that? And it's huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know you're very big on culture and really taking care of your employees. And that also affects the morale of the employees, right? Because when they see team members leave, or when there are mistakes, or a client, gets mad because whatever, and they leave, it's just like it also creates that internal turmoil that is not very conducive to having a good culture.
Absolutely right. And I think, that alone sometimes will make people keep people who are not the best fit. Is because you're scared. You're like, okay, well, what does that do to my team? And then again, you go back to a virtual environment where people don't understand, like, well, what didn't work out about this person because we're not in the same maybe pod, or we don't work together often. So when you put all of those things together, where I think that you actually you can find somebody who's a good culture fit, who may not actually have the skills, but if you have the processes documented where they can acquire the skills to be really good at their job, that they actually end up plugging in and kind of fitting in, and like you said, just being happier and better employees.
That is so true, Ashley. I had a client I was working with, and they used to hire by experience, although they knew they weren't a good cultural fit to their organization, but they had to have the experience because otherwise they weren't able to train and they weren't able to get them up and running, and they needed to service their customers. And once we were done documenting and having a training system, now they were able to hire people that are competent. Of course, they had to be able to learn, but also personality-wise were a great fit for their culture, and then they were able to train. So, as you said, it's definitely once you have those processes, that's what can happen.
Yeah, we look for culture fit, number 1. 2, education. We think if you have those 2 things, we can absolutely teach you to follow our processes, to do bookkeeping, or to be a senior accountant or a CPA here, right? And so those are kind of the 3 levels that we have. And we say, okay, you're responsible for this. And then these are the things that you have to do. And I just think that, it works well that way.
Absolutely. So, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening to us right now. Some of them are working remotely, have remote teams, some of them don't. But what are some lessons or some insights that you can give us from running a virtual team and being virtual yourself?
I actually was in an article in Forbes talking about this very thing. My article got selected to be featured. And the most important thing that I think of running a virtual firm is making sure that you have time together. And so once per year, we do a retreat where we get together in person. And I think that has been instrumental in our success, right? And so that in-person meeting has been really big. Last year, we went to an all-inclusive in Florida. It sounds glamorous. We all showed up and it was not that glamorous. Okay. Just being transparent. We were like, let's make the best of this. So we were supposed to go to a Mexico resort, but because of COVID still kind of going on, we had changed our plan. So doing something like that the year before, we just did an Airbnb at a lake house in Austin. So that was huge. 2, making sure that we have really flexible schedules and we have benefits, right? And so we make sure that everybody has the normal medical, dental, vision, life, that our employees are W-2 employees and they feel like that they're really heard and part of a team. And we do something that we call roll call every day. And it's a 15-minute meeting where if you're available, come. And if you're not, don't worry about it, right? And it's your chance to socialize with your team. And so everybody shows up to this and they may say, hey, Adi, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? And you say what you had for breakfast. And then you say, hey, Ashley, what'd you do yesterday when you got off work, right? And so everybody has a chance to, once you get asked a question, you can ask somebody a question that hasn't been asked. And so we do that. And then we do a once a month town hall meeting. And I know a lot of business owners are really scared of this, but we share financial statements and we go through those financial statements together. And we talk about our KPIs and we talk about the things that we did really good. And we talk about the things that we need to work on. And so it's our opportunity to say, okay, what are some of our issues? And then we follow up on our town hall with an issue solving meeting where we say, okay, this is what everybody said was an issue. Maybe it's processes, right? And how are we going to take steps to fix this thing, right? And so then we all kind of brainstorm for the next hour. And then it's obviously my job. Unfortunately, my assistant, she's the best and she carries the burden of carrying out some of these tasks. And so it's usually like, hey, Devin, will you help me make sure that we fix this based on the conversation we just had? And so we kind of tackle that issue. But I would say that those have been the most important parts of making this business successful, outside of just making sure that we hire the right people. One bad person in an organization, they say, is like cancer. in this business, what I have learned, if you were in a remote environment and you have one person, what I call kicking up dust, you don't know it because you can't see people together and you can't really interact with that person to understand what they're doing to your culture. It takes time to figure out, okay, this one person is causing a problem before, they've done some damage before you get a chance to fix it.
For sure. I can totally see that. Yeah. Wow, what a great piece of advice. So now this is how you run a virtual company, a virtual team. It's definitely getting them connected, hiring the right people, taking care of them, but still doing those team building activities. I think this is wonderful, Ashley. And you definitely show by the way that you operate this company, the previous companies. It's like, you know what you're doing. You are definitely there to help other entrepreneurs succeed. And of course, we need to give a big shout out to our mutual client, Chad Gill, the owner of Concreate, because he's the one who introduced us. And I've seen the wonderful work that you do with him and firsthand experience that, yes, you definitely you and your team do a fantastic job. So if we have other people right now that are listening to us, and I'm sure they go, yeah, Ashley knows what she's talking about. She's the woman that I want to hire, or I want to hire her team to help me with my business. How can they contact you?
They can reach out to us at hello@profitmatters.co, or go to our website and there's a contact form there and it'll take you through all the steps of booking a call with our awesome team. And that is profitmatters.co.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, Ashley, it's been a pleasure having you here on this podcast. You shared so much valuable information that I'm sure our listeners can apply, get inspired by, and definitely take their next step. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Adi.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.